Hey guys, welcome to today's episode of the Spiritual Evolution Podcast. I am your host, Andrea, and I'm excited to introduce this episode to you. I spoke with Lyam, aka Yam Socks, on TikTok is his name, and all of his links and everything will be available in the description below. But we talked about a lot of really interesting theories and ideas regarding mathematics and its relation to philosophy and spirituality and the depth behind those things. So it was a really amazing conversation, and I'm so grateful. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I did, and have a wonderful day.
No
So I'm
problem.
really excited to talk to you. I absolutely I'm obsessed with your content. Every time, I don't know, I will literally, I'm showing people your videos all the time because they're so
No way. It's
it's so
great.
so nice to see somebody combining, because I'm very much I believe that science needs to catch up with spirituality,
Mhm.
and how you the last video you explained you can't scientifically like discern God. You can't scientifically do a scientific method on God.
It
and
it won't yield anything, no.
it's like looking through a telescope for, like you said, it's just not the right, combination of things to make it work. You have to, it's external and spirituality is internal. I find that so amazing.
Right.
So I have a lot of questions here. So
Oh, perfect.
so let's get started. First of all, I want to know how, what made you want to, or what called you to kind of look at the similarities between mathematics and philosophy and spirituality.
Well, to tell you the truth, I think it was kind of pure coincidence. I mean, I grew up with a agnostic father and a spiritual mother, and I was well accustomed to a bunch of different religions as a kid. You know, I've got a bunch of Buddhas around the house. We did Hanukkah one year. We do Christmas. It's like a little bit of
I
this, a little
love
bit that.
that.
And it never really vibed with me. In
Mhm.
fact, for a large majority of my life, I was a pretty extreme atheist and just super
I saw
skeptical
that in
of
some of your videos.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and it wasn't until first year of university that I was really passionate about mathematics and science, and I wanted to get to the bottom of it. You know, I was like, wow, how cool would it be to create a theory of everything and whatnot. So that's when I started looking at theories of the universe and whatnot.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was purely by coincidence. After climbing or descending the rabbit hole of math to the very bottom of it, there's a lot of things there that were reminiscent of Buddhism and
Mhm.
Taoism and Hinduism and all the religions, philosophies, and spiritualities. And that blew my mind. I was like,
Right.
whoa. Why is it that at the bottom of science and mathematics we find all this stuff that I thought was complete nonsense?
Right. Yeah, it's interesting to see that how they intertwine. It really when I was I wanted to talk to you about the monster, because I'm like, what is that? Is that, like the universe? What,
Oh yeah.
I just find all of these I was watching your YouTube speed running mathematics I think is what it was called.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I thought that was so interesting. I loved the boredom repellent. I thought that was so cool.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
The fractals. And
Thought
that's
that was
another
fun.
thing I was gonna ask about. Is the multiverse just like fractals? What is your opinion on like coming up with a new theory about what infinity is and what the multiverse is, as compared to fractals and the Fibonacci spiral and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think the universe definitely mimics fractals, or vice versa in that way. We see fractals show up in the universe, and both quantum mechanics and relativity tell us that time is not linear, and so maybe those branchings off of timelines that could be conceived as parallel universes or alternate timelines that kind of spread out like a fractal, like a tree
Big
does.
tree. I was just thinking that. Yeah. And it's interesting because I also noticed how everything has like trees have that look of lungs, or and people do the comparisons all the time from the human body to nature to the universe, and I find that so intriguing how everything has a very many similarities. Like, for example, like what I was going to ask you about the Fibonacci spiral is like, do you believe that is that's a mathematic equation, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yep.
Yes. So I find that so interesting because it's like, so it's in everything. Like you find it
Mhm.
in all like nature, and that I feel like that's proof right there for me. But like, so let me see, what else do we have? What do you believe about antimatter, black matter? Besides like it being like a mirror of what is happening, is there anything else you've like theorized about that?
Well, I think the most remarkable fact about antimatter that no one seems to talk about, but a lot of high level physicists know and they just never really think twice about it, is the fact that antimatter is indistinguishable from regular matter, but going backwards in time.
Mm-hmm.
And they hear that and they go, ah, cool, just a coincidence, whatever. But I'm sitting here like, what?
Yeah.
We're always taught like, oh, we've never known anything that can go backwards in time. Time travel doesn't exist. But here we have something that is mathematically, literally going backwards in time,
Yeah.
undistinguishable. I think that's
Right.
like what that gives so many, that opens so many questions. Like,
Yeah.
okay, if it's going backwards in time, then what does that say about the future? Because clearly these things are not coming from the past when we find them in labs or whatever. They're coming from the future. In
Mm-hmm.
particular, most antimatter that we've discovered, we've created in a lab. And
Oh.
so if we've created it, let's suppose we're in the lab right now and we create some antimatter.
Mm.
Since we know that it's coming from the future, how did the future know to come here now if we just decided to push the button now? Like it
Right.
just throws time into just a wrench into the whole system. It's like, okay, something deeper is going on here.
Right, right. Mm. So, how do you like what was like the first thing that made you see like a deeper meaning to mathematics? Like what was the first thing that like clicked in your mind that made you question and like say like, oh shit.
That I will never forget that moment. Um, it was a really stupid statement, but that statement suddenly unlocked a new level
Mm,
of meaning. And in particular, I wanted to find what was at the bottom of mathematics, like I said. And historically, mathematics is constructed from the ground up from logic. So a good step for looking at what the foundation of math is looking at the foundation of logic. Um, and I should mention the whole reason I chose mathematics to study is because I consider it like the language of the universe. So what's the most fundamental component of the language of the universe? And in my opinion, it came down to uh, one thing and one thing only, and that was literally that which was not a thing, the essence of absence itself. Because from absence, you can kind of construct all of the universe and everything, even mathematically. Like you take absence. If that's your only building block to work with, you're God. All you have is nothing, and you take absence. Well, if that's your only building block, the only thing you can do with absence is then take the absence of absence because there's nothing else to take. But the
right.
absence of absence
It's something.
is presence. We just constructed
Mhm.
existence out of non-existence. And that blew
Dang.
my mind because I remembered in Buddhism, I don't know how I remembered this because I never studied Buddhism prior, maybe a past life, I don't know. But I remembered that nirvana in Buddhism is literally a word that means nothingness. I was like,
Mhm.
holy crap, they were on about nothing. And then the
Yeah.
Tao in Taoism literally means that which is not, again, about absence and non-existence. And I remembered that Shiva, I have a statue of Shiva here actually.
Oh my
Shiva
gosh.
is
I haven't wheel from
oh,
Shiva.
that's awesome. Etymologically, Shiva literally means Shiva, no thing, literally
Mhm.
nothing.
Right.
In Christianity, one of the first words in Genesis 1:1 is heaven, and heaven is a word from Hebrew that literally means the formless. So
Yeah.
everything revolving about non just non in general, not non-existence, absence, whatnot. They're at the fundamental components of all religions. And
Mhm.
you find that at the very bottom of math. And that's when it clicked. I was like, whoa, it's
Yeah.
all real.
Yeah. Right. And yeah, I it's like crazy to think about how we want to label everything, but at the end of the day, like we can't, like it's inconceivable to label that, like you said, like that which is absence and that which is like outside of, like I was gonna, another thing I was gonna ask is like, what is your idea of like human enlightenment? Because like personally, I feel we can only get so far as humans, and I'm not trying to say that to limit humanity or anything like that, but I believe like our soul, our like and our, you know, our over soul or our higher self and
Mhm.
the, you know, the divine life force that's in each and every one of us is greater than what we can experience as humans. So like what is your idea on like human finding enlightenment? And
Well, I certainly agree that just being a human, you've limited yourself. Like if you try to encapsulate the infinite in anything finite, it's no longer infinite, or at the very least, it's a smaller infinity.
mm,
And humans are just being human, being a spiritual being encased in a human vessel. It's very very limiting. And I think enlightenment really means is that the final revelation that you are not simply this vessel. You are not human. You are a spiritual being having a human experience.
mm,
And we hear in Buddhism and Hinduism, pretty much any Vedic tradition, that after enlightenment, you cease from having a body. You will not reincarnate again because you're completely unattached finally to your mortal frame. And
mm,
so I think, again, enlightenment, much like absence, it's hard to put into words precisely what it is. Um, but I'm very attracted to the Buddhist idea that it's just an elevation of consciousness, and I equate consciousness with awareness. So it's the penultimate awareness of your true identity, and that sparks the detachment from your body and your identity.
right. And finding that awareness of awareness. I remember that one video of yours, I was like hooked. I was like, yes, he knows what he's talking about.
There's so
And
many levels. There's infinite levels of awareness.
yeah, and it can really, and then I remember you like put it together and it became like sacred geometry, and I am a big fan of sacred geometry. I have it like tattooed all over me. um
Hell yeah.
and it's just like that, and I find that like I want to learn, like I want to go deeper. I have like, you know, the books on it and stuff. I have so many books I have to read. But that's why I'm excited to talk to you about everything, because I feel like I've, even though you're younger than me, I've learned so much from you. It's like I have all these new, you know, newfound mentors and stuff, and I feel like we're all teaching each other in some way, shape, or form, and I think that's beautiful because it's
Well, hey, we're
hasn't
both
been
13.8 billion years old, at least
yeah,
in this cycle, at least.
right. So let's see. What is your favorite mathematical or continuum theory, or was it one that you?
Favorite theory? Oh, Well, I'm really fascinated by the continuum hypothesis, which
Mm,
is the a question about which infinities exist, because I think it was uh, the mathematician Cantor, when he was really kind of explicitly defining what it means to be infinity, he was finding that there isn't just one notion of infinity. There's several different classes, and each class can be divided into an infinite amount of different infinities. And I
mm,
think my favorite fact about that is that um, not only are there an infinite number of infinities, but there isn't an infinity big enough to describe how many
right,
infinities there are.
right.
It's like, what?
You
You try to wrap your head around that. You can't.
can, and yes, and I find that so fascinating too. And I was gonna ask you about like why do you think, I know that it's, you know, it's a lot deeper than like right like the mathematics that they teach us in school, but like why do you think that they don't even give us the option to like learn about this stuff really in high school anyway? Um
Yeah, isn't that weird? I mean, I frankly, I think they think that they can't teach it to high school students. Because to be fair, yeah, you
mm,
only start to actually learn about this stuff after you've accumulated like all of calculus, real analysis, algebra, set theory, topology. These notions of infinity are like the peak of mathematics.
Mathematics.
So it's like,
Yeah.
how are you supposed to like
You can't
explicitly
start from the
explain
top
that entire ladder? But that's the thing, as I think you can. I
down.
think it's
Okay.
like it's such at the top of the ladder that it
Mhm.
almost exists in its own world, and you could start there and work down instead of
Mhm.
taking 14 years to start at the bottom and work your
Well,
way up.
exactly. Yeah, it's like they take so long to teach you. It's almost like the same things over and over and over. And it gets to me like I'm at the point where I'm ready to homeschool for sure because
Hmm.
you can teach yourself just about anything these days. You
Exactly.
really can if you have the the drive to and like the discipline, which I'm getting to the point where I do.
Yes, Alvaro. I think
um,
another thing that makes it difficult is that we tend to only teach stuff that's applicable, and the
mhm,
really abstract things about infinity, it's not very applicable. I mean, how are
right,
you going to use that to make a living? You're
exactly.
not, but it is applicable in spirituality,
Yeah,
certainly.
it's a
But
philosophy.
you
Yeah,
can't really, very rarely can you make a living off of spirituality. And
right. It's it.
even if you could, I don't know if the school boards would be okay with that idea.
Right. Well, that goes kind of against what their kind of I believe what their goal is, and that's to kind of dumb it down and keep us from enlightening our
I
mind.
see what you mean. I don't know if that's necessarily like what their goal is, but I think coincidentally that is what's happening. I think it's
How it works
inevitable
out.
that just
Right.
like that is what's happening, definitely.
Right. Yeah, and I know that it's just like it hasn't evolved much over the years, and that's where it kind of gets to me. It's like the education system hasn't really evolved with time as everything else has evolved. It's still the
Mhm.
same shit that they were teaching however long ago. I know clearly like college and all of that stuff is going to continue to evolve. But I don't know. That's just my opinion on that.
No, yeah, it's become more and more systematic, and that's the problem is the more systematic you make anything, that's the essence of the ego working, because the ego loves to divide and conquer, categorize this between that, and find differences and make a system, a hierarchy of the best
Yes.
OCD ever conceived of. And inevitably that'll detract you from the spiritual path
Right.
and unity.
Yeah. So let me see. When do you believe a new consciousness will begin in humanity, and does this like consciousness or like this collective need to be kind of destroyed in order for the new heightened awareness to like real like enlightenment to come into
Mm.
collective consciousness?
That's a good question. I've seen multiple different sources talk about how there's I think it was the seventh great civilization is approaching. And in order to do that, you must, of course, dismantle the current civilization to build a new one. I know the law of one talks about how there's a great how do they put it? I don't think it was reaping, but it was like farming, like the farming of the great
Oh,
farming of
harvest.
soul. Yeah, the harvest.
Yeah,
That's it.
I've heard of it.
Yeah. I don't know. I have no personal experience with it. However, one thing that I can say for certain is something very indicative about this next generation of children, and it's that they're becoming the healers of their parents.
Oh,
And
for
I
sure.
think never before, or at least not for thousands of years, do you see the next generation healing the wounds of the previous generation, because you're
Absolutely.
flipping the whole parental role there. And so I
Uh-huh.
think that's telling you that some deep awakened spirit is emerging from the primordial void or something. But yeah, I know people my age and younger, like they know shit. And it's
Yeah.
terrifying. They're they may not be very smart, but they're very wise.
Intuitive and
They're
yeah,
intuitive, definitely.
right. Yeah, I completely agree. It's almost like the people who are incarnating now are even like they're the old souls that are here to like really make like waves, but like for the greater good of the whole. And I almost like I don't know, I believe that like the system may some parts of the system need to be obviously like dismantled in order to build from the ground up things that have become so corrupt. You know, like I was raised in a Catholic home, so I have, you know, I have my reservations about the church and stuff and the corruption
Yeah, of
and
course. Yeah.
and like lost in translation with the Bible and everything, and how many different like, you know, changes have been made and stuff. So that's one thing that I like feel like, you know, just needs to be reconstructed or deconstructed and then built back up like in the, you know, way that it's meant to, like for, you know, for love and unity and all of the things that it's supposed to stand for.
I totally agree.
But yeah, that's another thing I was curious, like I know you've studied like different, like the Vedas and the scriptures and stuff like that.
Mhm.
What is your opinion on how things have like kind of become lost in translation over the years, and how we can kind of dismantle that and get people to see the like the truth of it and like the read
Mm.
between the lines, you know, and see the difference between like, you know, the King James Bible and then like the scrolls, you know.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I have that right next to me at the moment. So I was doing some new translations of King James Version.
So
Yeah, allow me to pull that up quickly.
yes, take your time.
Yeah, I love the Vedas because the original Sanskrit is mostly intact, and I think that's why we see that Hinduism hasn't really changed that much as Christianity has. Because weirdly enough, despite that, Sanskrit is one of the oldest languages ever. Someone around that time had the foresight to think, huh, we should write down how our language works. It's one of the only languages where, like in human history, where someone actually wrote down how it works so that future people would know how to translate it.
Right.
So the Vedic religions are, I think, great. The translations today are pretty intact. Christianity, on the other hand, is a little different. I really am not a big fan of the King James version, despite that it's the like the current most used version. Um, and I was talking to someone yesterday about why is it that both a Jew and a Christian have the Old Testament a part of their repertoire, but they have totally different perspectives on the same text. And the real only difference, besides some cultural nuances, is that the Jews have it in their original language, and the Christians are reading like a translation of a translation. And so I think my theory of why Christianity has evolved differently is because when we in history went to translate the Hebrew into English, we went for a more literal translation. And that thereby makes most Christians interpret the text more literally and linguistically as an actual story that happened, instead of what the Jews tend to interpret it as, which is more philosophical and metaphorical and symbolic. So if you don't mind, I've translated the first 4 verses of Genesis 1:1 to Genesis 1:4. And I'll first read the King James version, the one everyone knows, and then I'll read you my version, which came from, instead of linguistically translating the original Hebrew, I've philosophically and more abstractly translated it to keep the same message. And I think you'll see the difference is quite starking. Yes. So King James version. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. You know, not so bad. You know, it's a nice story. And here's my best attempt at translating the original Hebrew. Completely different. In the beginning, a discernment was made between non-existence and existence. Presence was sought, thus presence became. Presence was acknowledged in high regard and was discerned from absence. I missed a quote, sorry. I missed somewhere in there was existence was empty and nothing illuminated consciousness, yet spirit transcended the formless.
That's so beautiful.
But
I
yeah, isn't that a little different?
It's a lot, yeah, it's definitely different. And I remember I did like because I was doing some research and I remember seeing that the discernment translation, and that makes so much sense because like you were said, like when we were talking earlier about how like the absence of absence became presence, and that it really makes a lot more sense that like it would be something that is kind of separated rather than just created
Mm-hmm.
out of nowhere, out of, so and that's another thing I feel like I've seen on Duncan Trussell's podcast. He did one with the programmer, and he kind of made it into like what's the word? So, oh my god, why is it escaping me? Oh my gosh, I want to say synchronicity. It's not. Simulation theory.
Right, right.
And yeah, so I thought that was interesting too. And it seems like there is so many different ways to look at it, and I feel with the way like the church has become very like almost like controlling, it's like they only want you to see it from their perspective, and it's like blasphemy if you want to like actually go and read the scrolls and do your own research.
Mm-hmm.
I just find that really sad. Like I just wish that it was, you can't change someone's mind, you can't make them see, and that's not what we're here to do. Everybody's
Of
journey is
course,
very
no, yeah.
different, but I think it's important for like like you said, like our generation, and clearly like our children and stuff, like even my son, like he like wants my spirit sticks and wants my cards, and like when he like always so into it, like, and he's got his own little deck, like, and he's not even 2, so it's very interesting to like see how quickly things are shifting just by our generations, like and the collective like shifting its perspective together and seeing through this like kind of like conditioning, and like them trying to basically like blindside us with like facts and information that like they don't
Mm-hmm.
expect you to actually delve into and research yourself. They just want you to blindly follow.
Yep.
And like I'm so grateful that we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, no, a shift is coming.
Yes. I feel it's like it's already happening, but something big's gonna happen soon.
Oh, it's been happening.
Right.
There's no nothing is super rigid in the universe.
Right.
It's all a continuum. We're just at a
Evolution,
we're
yes.
at a nice part in the spectrum of the transition so far.
Right. Let me see what other questions we have here. I'm totally not going in order.
It's okay.
Why do you believe you incarnated at this moment in time?
Ah, I think um well, to that's a good question. And to analyze my own life, for some reason, it's been set up in a way that I see myself easily um, being well equipped to transmit information or energy or communicate across the internet, because this is a whole new plane of existence that has opened up the past century, which is the digital realm. um, and yeah, I suppose that it's like the question, why did life arise on Earth? I think it's less so of a silly question than it is a rhetorical question. Like, of course, it was meant to happen here.
Right.
Why? Because, in a way, which is kind of a cop out question, or a cop out answer, but because it's kind of a cop out question. So I
Right.
see that a vacancy in the universe opened up for someone to transmit information and energy about spirituality and consciousness and mathematics on this whole new digital realm, and thus something by the law of attraction filled that void, and that happened to be me and you and other people like us.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Thank you.
Let's see. Oh, do we actually have free will? Because I'm sure like our consciousness actually decides before we realize like the decision has been made to do or say something. It's already like in our somewhere in our consciousness. And then I'm not exactly sure if there's a term for it, but it's on a spirit science YouTube video, and I really like them because they do a good job of like combining the two and explaining and everything.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on the free will?
Yeah, I've heard that that like, scientists can detect what choice you make in your mind, like how many milliseconds before you actually even realize your own choice.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, we must discern between the mind and the consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
What I know for certain is that whether or not we have free will, both cases are equivalent. Like you would never know the difference, and thus that begs into question the how sound the question is. Like, okay, if both answers to the question doesn't change the outcome, then what does that say about the question?
Right.
Interestingly, my favorite mathematician, John Conway, once proved a paper called the free will theorem. And he was able to prove, with under the assumptions of quantum mechanics, that if any single being in the universe has free will, then thus it is necessary that every single thing in the universe has free will. And that includes inanimate objects, that includes atoms, that includes particles, you name it. If anything has free will, then everything must have free will, which is a really interesting theorem.
Yeah, that is it. I mean, it makes sense because whether those atoms and particles are going to come together to be created, maybe they choose, where they end up. I don't know, as inanimate objects, because I do believe that everything like plants and animals and the earth itself, the stars, all of it's very much sentient and,
Mhm.
conscious. I haven't really thought too much about inanimate objects because I think that would kind of like warp my mind a little bit because I can overanalyze stuff like to a point where it's like just stop.
Right.
But let's see. Um, so how, like, I mean, I've already asked you how you believe mathematics and spirituality relate.
Mhm.
So what do you okay, so I don't know if you've heard if you know much about like star seeds and stuff like that, but there's a theory about the Hindu gods and goddesses in the Vedas that they were vegan star seeds, which are basically like blue alien beings.
Hmm.
So what do you think about like the deities in those religions as like extraterrestrial beings?
That's a good question. I don't know much about star seeds, but I have been doing some research lately. Um, I would I would question uh, whether is it a just theory to confine these deities into something as even though as galactic as they are,
Mhm.
even star seeds or anything that is not the entire
Right,
universe, but
right.
maybe their avatars in particular were star
Uh-huh.
seeds, the vessels that they came down in.
Right.
um
Mhm.
One thing I know about the Hindu deities is that somewhere in the Vedas, it states that the gods were created by man to be objects of meditation, divine, perfect objects of meditation. They were meticulously crafted and put into existence by the sheer power of mind, so that they would become the ultimate objects of meditation. Thus, when you, upon the meditation of these objects, these deities, that their aspects and attributes would manifest in you, if that
Right.
sheds any light.
Like it's funny, I was just actually watching about like a video about Lilith and they were talking about is Morg. He's talking about how she is an archetype within your consciousness and you can, connect with like that, part of yourself, just how everything is connected and all of that. But it's almost like he was explaining how it's a story and it's like it doesn't necessarily have to be like a thing in existence, it's just something within each and every one of us, like attributes of standing up for justice and equality and all of that for her anyway.
Right.
And I found that to be interesting, because
I do
it's
like
almost
that.
like
I love
you
the
know
idea of archetypes.
Right, when people work with these deities, it's like you're working with just like a higher version of yourself almost, and like working with tapping into that energy within yourself. But it's something for us as humans to kind of wrap our minds around a little better.
Oh, absolutely.
So let me see what else we have. So I don't know if, I think that, okay, so is it mathematically possible to create like a sustainable amount of resources for everyone in the world to like be okay? Because I'm big on like wanting to like, and I know that there is like enough of a lot, like there's enough food that's wasted that could feed and help the people that are
Mm-hmm.
starving. But in like aspects of like water and shelter and all of those other things, do you believe that it's mathematically possible for us to do that with the way the population has been rising so fast?
I think it is certainly possible. However, I don't think it is possible, not because I think it's unlikely, but just the way that karma works is that we'd have to dissolve a lot of karma so that no one would be able to be in the karmic scenario of not having
Good point.
shelter and things like that. Because I think if we subscribe to the idea of reincarnation, then and the idea of karma, then necessarily the people in the world that are suffering right now had to have some karmic influence in a past life that, by the law of every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Maybe Jimmy, although he's a great kid, unfortunately was an absolute masochist in his past life, and thus the lesson and learning that he must have in this life is to feel what it happened to the people that he caused the suffering to in a past life.
Absolutely.
Which no one likes to think about, because especially when you think about all the suffering that happens with children, because that means you're justifying suffering. But
Yeah.
but we have to take a step back for a moment and go, okay, no matter if or not we are justifying suffering, remember that we are in the universe where all things are of the universe, and every lesson that's happening in the universe is caused and created for itself, for it to learn and grow. And thus it puts itself under suffering as a great cosmic play so that it can learn in the future. And so it's not truly suffering, individual parts of it maybe, but as a galactic or intergalactic whole, it is just as free and always will be.
Yeah, I like that. That's like gets me thinking. I like that. That's a good answer.
It's definitely a thinker, yeah.
um oh, so did you hear about the black hole that like spewed out matter? Because there was like a couple, like maybe a
Oh,
month
maybe.
ago. It's like a month or so ago. There was like a black hole that like spit something out, and I just wanted to see if you like what you thought about like why or how that might happen. As it's obviously not what black holes do, as far as we know. Um, I didn't like research it too much, but I did want to like see it. What you just think of that phenomena in general?
Well, have you heard of quasars?
No.
Well, quasars, they are believed to be black holes that are ejecting jets of material across the poles. And the thing is the material is not actually coming from within the black hole. It's coming from all the material that's trapped in an eternal orbit around it, and through weird magnetic lines and flux, it gets funneled and shot out to the poles. And so it looks like it's spewing it out, but it's actually from the lines that it's spewing out, it's coming from exactly the perpendicular to that. It's coming from outside, getting revolved around the black hole, being shot out like some big cosmic slingshot. So I don't know if they were referring to a quasar or something. But there is another theory, which is the idea of a white hole, which is the equal and opposite of a black hole, where instead of it sucks everything in and nothing can escape, a white hole is just a source of things, and it's sending stuff out and nothing can enter.
Okay.
And we've never found a white hole, but I think maybe this was the same paper where they suggested that maybe this thing that we saw wasn't actually a black hole, but was a white hole.
Okay.
But it's unlikely.
Yeah, right. That'd be really interesting. If they discovered one of those.
Totally.
So, so how do you believe? I mean, other than through meditation and what we spoke about earlier with finding enlightenment in human form, what about like finding transcendence as a human? Is there anything like more to transcending the human form other than like death? Is there anything like that have philosophized or theorized about with those ideas about like transcending this?
Uh, would you elaborate on what you mean by transcending?
I guess just connecting with that, like the divine on a level that's not so much like, I guess, more than astral projection, even just like really like finding that oneness without actually dying. Like, do you believe that's possible or?
Oh, without actually dying. Uh, well, I think that most scriptures tell you that there is no such thing as dying,
Oh yeah.
really. And even in Buddhism, which states that you never return after dying, after enlightenment, they also say that it's not the case that you don't return, nor is it the case that you do return. It's something else, and it's not neither, and it's not both. So so theoretically, you could return if you after enlightenment. And my theory is that the reason why the Buddha said that we cannot say for certain that I will return or not, because it wasn't decided yet, and because of the free will,
Mhm.
we cannot say for certain if or if not that will happen. So I think an enlightened being, if so desired, could return to the karmic cycle of internal rebirth,
Mhm.
and have in its repertoire the abilities of an enlightened person. And perhaps all of us are. Perhaps we have already reached enlightenment within a
Yeah.
previous universe or whatnot,
Right.
and we'd never know.
Right.
Or would we? We'll find out.
Right. It is. It's like I think about that too. If we came in, into this body knowing everything that like we have already, experienced in other lifetimes without having to work to like do, those studying and all of the experience, like it wouldn't be the same experience. We wouldn't really have the opportunity to learn because we would already we would think we already have it all like figured out, and that's not the point of human life. This is kind of more like a soul growth learning experience, like a school.
Yeah,
uh
nice big school.
yeah. So let's see, what do you think about the undecidables in mathematics? Like, is
Mm.
that anything similar to like, because I like on your speedrunning mathematics you had the third, it was like in decide, or it was like
Yeah, true, false, and the
yeah,
third
and then
one.
the I.
Yeah, the I, the inconceivable, the
Inconceivable.
indeterminate, whatever you want to call it.
That's it.
Um,
Like, is that similar at all, or?
yeah, I mean, it all revolves around duality because our minds are very dualistic things. We always assume that things are strictly true or false, that statements have a definite yes or no answer, like the classic, which came first, the chicken or the egg, or pertaining to math, is math discovered or invented? Like, we assume that it has to be one of those things. And you'll notice the reason the reason that those two questions are for the most part unanswered is because we assume that it has to be one of those things.
Right.
If we don't assume that, then the question's no longer exciting. It's like, okay, it's both, or it's neither, or it's
Mhm.
something else. It's like you've
Right.
solved it. Boom. But it's not exciting. And the mind really likes to be excited. And it's really exciting to organize everything into a true, false binary system, on, off, this, that, which of course is the work of the ego. The ego loves doing that.
Uh-huh.
Um, and yeah, I think I think these undecidable statements are very very common. So common, in fact, that I think every statement is one of those statements. There is no such thing as a statement that is cleanly yes or cleanly no.
Absolutely. I totally agree there. It's anything can be transmuted or alchemized into like anything else. So
Exactly. You
this
introduce
stuff,
time into the mix, and everything
right,
is changing. Then these answers must be changing too. So there's nothing
exactly.
permanent about these.
Right, everything. The only thing that is permanent is impermanence. So it is very much like it's both.
Right? It's both.
Everything is both.
Neither. Everything, nothing.
Um, let's see what else we have. Do you believe consciousness exists in the mind, or body, or both, or neither?
Hmm.
Or, I mean, is that one of those questions?
Consciousness, in my opinion, is I really like this Buddhist story. I think a Buddhist was asked this, and he said something like, suppose I have two pots. I've got an empty pot and I've got a pot filled with water. Notice you see your reflection or the sun's reflection in the pot with water. But we can't say that the sun's light also isn't within the empty pot.
Mhm.
It has nothing to do with the water. The water is just reflecting it. That's all. In fact, if I dump both of them out, they're still both equally reflecting water, just as much as they do when you fill them both with water. And so
Mm,
the metaphor is that light is the consciousness,
right.
um, and the pot is your body, and the water is your mind. And
Mhm.
so you need a body to put a mind in.
Mhm.
And the mind allows the consciousness, which is already everywhere, to
Right.
reflect upon itself to become self aware. And so, in that sense, consciousness is everywhere. However, self consciousness or self awareness isn't everywhere. It's
Mhm.
only wherever there's a mind. So, a rock in this universe is conscious. However, it is not a rock is not aware that it's conscious.
Self-aware, right. Right, right, right. I love that. That's like that makes so much sense to me. And it's almost like people don't want to think outside of the box. I mean, our generation has definitely like broken that box, but
Mhm.
I feel um and like you said, like the children are like the teachers of the people that they are related family wise to. Like we chose our families because probably obviously like we are here to do a lot of healing, not just for the collective and ourselves, but like for the families and directly like generational like cycles that we chose to come here to help break. Um,
Right.
and I think it's so important for people to be willing to like admit that like maybe it's not exactly what they thought, because like my beliefs have evolved and changed over time, like in the last
Mhm.
2 years, because I'm learning more and I'm opening myself up to more information and wisdom and experience. uh and it's when you get into that state of mind where like you think only one way is possible, like, and nothing else, then you just kind of cut yourself off from being able to learn more. And
Mhm.
it gets frustrating.
It's super frustrating. Oh yeah.
But let's see, what else do we have? Hmm. um so what do you believe, the difference, if there is a difference, between frequency and vibration?
Well, they're related by speed mathematically. As long as you know it's the holy trinity of vibration, frequency, and speed. You know one of those two things, you'll know the third one.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so I mean, mathematically, frequency is just how how quick the cycle is, each cycle is. Vibration is, well, I guess the trinity I'm actually thinking of is speed, wavelength, and frequency. And vibration refers to all three of those things.
Okay.
And so frequency is how quickly something is, and wavelength is the size of that cycle, and the speed is essentially the link that tells you how you get the frequency from the size and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think vibration encompasses all of that. For our sense of sound, the frequency is the pitch, and the size is the volume.
Right.
And for light, the frequency is the color, and
Yes.
the size is the brightness and whatnot. All of our senses are a measure of some vibration, of course.
Yeah. I like that. And it seems like people have become very like they're starting to understand that everything is frequency and everything has like a frequency or and a vibration to it. So I just thought I wanted to ask you that because I know that like you study the mathematics. So it make sense that I mean they're all intertwined, but I knew that there was like a separation. So I wanted to know what what the difference was between the two.
Yeah, the vibration is just a name for all of those phenomena.
Yes.
Frequency is one aspect of vibration, just as wavelength is, just as
Right.
speed is.
Right. That makes sense. Mhm. Oh, have you heard of the cold spot in space?
There's a couple cold spots out there.
So what do you have any theories or thoughts about the how that may have come to be? Because the videos I was watching made a little bit of sense about it, but I was interested in what your thoughts were.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? It's very, very, very boring place to be. There's not a lot of energy transferring at all. Because there's no energy to transfer there. That
Yeah.
is, if you associate excitement with stuff happening. There's just not a lot of stuff happening there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do expect, some places of the universe are going to be hotter than other. Stars
Mhm.
are hot. Gaps between stars tend to be a little colder than.
Mhm.
The weirdest one, in my opinion, is the Great Attractor, which you might have heard, because our galaxy is a part of a supercluster of other galaxies called Laniakea. And when we track the motions of all the galaxies in Laniakea, they're all generally moving towards one point. And so that one point is called the Great Attractor. But the weird thing is about the Great Attractor is when we point our telescopes there, there's nothing there, which is kind of bizarre. Everything's moving towards nothing. So how is it being attracted? Because gravity tends to need mass to attract things.
Yeah, like what is the pull? That's
Yeah.
interesting.
I think I think there's a dual of the Great Attractor too. It's called the Great Repeller or something. Is everything's moving towards the Great Attractor and away from whatever it was called, the Great Repeller or something. And there's also nothing at the Great Repeller. So it's like this big cosmic magnet bar, except the magnet
Right.
doesn't exist.
Wow, that sounds incredible. Yeah, like they were saying these spots in space like are some like byproduct of like the creation of the universe, and that like that's what was kind of left from it was like very deep. It's like something like that's left over basically from like the Big Bang.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
The
that sounds
cosmic microwave background.
yeah. And that sounds kind of conceivable. So I thought that, yeah, I'm gonna have to look into the that great attractor because that's interesting. I
Oh
just
yeah,
got my
space
son
is
a
cool.
telescope, and
You
I'm
just got
like,
what, sir?
I got my son a telescope, but
Oh,
like he's
nice.
not even two. So, like I got it for me, but like
Yeah.
I'll be able to use it when we're older. When he's older, well, I'll be older too. But let's see what else we have. Uh, mm, oh, I already asked you that one. Um, Do you have any thoughts on like Kundalini energy and like awakening it and any like have you ever worked with like Kundalini energy at all?
I have. uh, I don't recommend it. Here's the thing. It's some powerful shit. Like
Yes.
it'll
Yeah.
if you're not ready for it, it'll fuck you up. And
Oh,
I
for
think
sure.
they even tell you that like like if you awaken it, because pretty much anyone can awaken it. You just have to meditate the right way. And but the thing is if you do that, the whole theory is that the kundalini's wrapped around the base of your spine, and you
Right.
just have to channel it up to your crown chakra, which isn't that hard. The hard part is getting it back down again. Because the thing is, apparently, if it's up there for more than 2 weeks, you just die, and that
What?
sucks. You just get reborn again. You have to spend more time removing all that karma again.
Oh my.
It's just pointless because you just like it's the most ecstatic suicide ever, and it's just
What?
unnecessary.
I didn't know that. See, like, so then I was like watching videos and stuff like a week ago. This Kundalini, it was like a real Kundalini awakening, like popped up when I was getting your questions out and stuff. So I was like, oh, I should ask one of this.
Oh, it's dangerous.
Yeah, it's this guy that like does like he does these like classes. They're expensive. Like I looked at it because I was like interested. They're really expensive, but he basically like awakens it for you. He's like an energy worker, and he does like all these movements. But like the people look like they're like convulsing, like they look like they're going
Mhm.
through like some really intense shit. And like I know what you mean by like not being ready for stuff like that, because that can be very overwhelming for
Oh
people
yeah,
that aren't like that, just are just getting into it. And that could even after 2 years, I don't think when I'm ready for it, like it will happen in meditation when my guides think I'm ready,
right.
because it's definitely something that like you got to be careful with. Yeah, I
Oh,
totally
totally. I think the yogis they tell you that you got to practice all 8 limbs of yoga to get the diamond body, and that takes like decades of constant practice to do.
Exactly. Right.
And I think I accidentally uh, I don't know, I did something with the Kundalini once while I was meditating, and I immediately knew after that I need to start working out because my body was not ready for that transfer. In fact, my body froze up like ALS. Like
Oh
my
wow.
hands were like literally like frozen. It was terrifying because
Mhm.
I couldn't move them. It's as if someone like tensed up all my muscles. Or I guess it was me. I
Oh.
tensed up all my muscles, and you just couldn't untense them. And
Wow.
it was exciting, I'll tell you that much.
Oh yeah,
But
that's
um,
pretty scary.
I committed to myself that I would never do that again until I had practiced all the necessary things.
Right. Yeah, it can, and it can, I mean, you didn't do it by accident, right? Or was it like kind of just like random? Because I've never heard of anyone doing it without like trying to do it. Were you doing like a Kundalini meditation?
I was just breathing, focusing on my breath.
Breath work. Yes,
Yeah,
breath work is,
just pranayama.
yeah, I like doing breath work every morning, but like I think that's a good way to start, like getting your body kind of ready for it. It's like yoga, breath work, meditation, but I don't think it's something you want to like go have somebody do for you if you're just starting in this path.
Oh yeah, no, that's how you traumatize yourself.
Yeah, that's what happened when I was 15. No, I was maybe
Oh
like
yeah.
16, 17. I had this crazy awakening. I was like didn't go to school for like over a month. It was because I was in 11th grade, and it was like we were studying like energy and atoms and stuff in chemistry, and it was just, and I was partying, and I'm almost 3 years sober. I was like, and I was had addiction problems back
Mhm.
from high school up until like 5 years ago. And but anyway, so I had taken this ecstasy pill, and it just made me like, it had like 2CI research chemical in it, and it made me like trip out to the point where like I said, I missed school, like I couldn't sleep, I couldn't do anything, I didn't leave my room, like it was very terrifying. And it almost felt like something was like moving through me. So it may have like certainly been some kind of a kundalini like energy. And it was definitely like very intense and very like very scary, because there was no kind of, you know, spiritual community that I could connect with. Like my mom brought me to the fucking priest. Like
Yeah.
you know, because I was like, I have to save the world, like the world's so fucked up. Like I was
Right.
like going through it. I was like had this whole savior complex going, because, you know, I was raised Catholic and thought, I'm Jesus coming back. Like it was like
Well,
ridiculous.
that's the thing, right? Is at some point in spirituality, you gain a God complex, because that's the shtick about spirituality, is that God is the unity that is all. So of course you're God. Like,
Right.
you got a God complex? Hell yeah, I do, and you should too. Everyone is.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's about finding that harmony and balance within the, you know, like within the understanding of that, and having all aspects of yourself, shadow and light, integrated, so that you're not just focused on, you know, one part solely, because it's more than just the light and the love and all of that. And I've
Yeah,
had to learn that
precisely.
for sure. um
Yes.
but
Well, that
yeah,
sounds like quite the experience.
it was, yeah, dude. I mean, I've talked about it in a couple other episodes and stuff. It was definitely like, and then when I got sober 5 years ago, I was having very, very vivid night terrors, where it was like Inception kind of night terrors. And
Oh yeah. Okay.
they
Yeah, I
had me
know
on this
that.
medication. Yeah. And like, it was due to the medication that the night terrors were getting worse, but I had already had night terrors before that.
Mhm.
Um, like, and it actually caused me to be able to like lucid dream, because I finally started to like fight back in one where I thought I was being abducted, like by an alien.
Whoa,
It was
that is
intense.
interesting.
Yeah, because I like started to fight back, and I don't know, at this point I feel like it may have been like my guides or my ancestors just trying to get me to wake up in my dream. I don't think they were
Right.
actually like aliens abducting me. I really think that it was just like them coming to me like, you got to wake yourself
Mhm.
up and like to get out of it. And so, and that's what happened. I did. And then my dreams have been so incredible ever since. I mean, I've had my nightmares here and there, but like just last night I had a dream about my best friend that passed away, and she used to come to me in my dreams a lot, and she hasn't in a while, but last night she did. And I
Oh,
have
how
had a
lovely.
hard time remembering my dreams lately, but I remembered last night, and it was really cool because like um you know, like I have a little like altar set up for her, and she's like a big part of my guide team. She's with me a lot. I see her name everywhere. Her name's Julie, and like I swear
Hmm.
I see her, like it gets really like intense. It's like so often sometimes, but yeah, it's really nice to be able to like lucid dream and talk, like see, you know, past loved ones and stuff in your dream time. But it can be really hard to get to that point for sure. Like, do you have any
Hmm.
thoughts on dreams?
I think I share a very similar story with my relationship with dreams. Having a lot of nightmares as a child, I kind of forced myself to be a lucid dreamer, to shut down the nightmares while they were happening.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's, I don't know if that's how, you know, I'm sure people are able to lucid dream without going through that, but I feel that that can be a big, like, you know, Kickstarter almost, like how we go through, you know, as, I mean, as healers, we have to go through something that we have to heal ourselves to be able to
Hmm.
heal other people. And so it would make sense, you know, that that would be the thing that would wake us up in the dream time, is something so terrible.
Yeah, yeah,
That, you
no.
know, you got to stop it. Um,
I
but
think
yeah.
Islam says something similar about um, it's not that apparently in Islam, it's not that Allah punishes you because he like hates you. It's because it's the
Mhm.
most effective way at waking you up.
Right. Yes, it's the most effective way to bring growth, and yeah, and like those aha moments almost come from, like sometimes come from like the most difficult experiences that we go through for sure.
Hmm.
Okay, so I have like a few more questions. Let's see. Oh wow, that's funny. The next one was, do you ever astral project while meditating? Do you
Ah,
ever have
yes.
you ever astral projected?
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Um, I always say that I have a very simple definition of astral projection, and that's astral projection is simply when you focus your awareness on something. And so usually it's something, typically when we think of astral projection, it's like another space,
Mhm.
another place. So we're just focusing our awareness, we're channeling our consciousness, we're throwing it like a
Mhm.
ball or like a fishing line somewhere
Yeah.
else. And so like in that sense, you're astral projecting all the time. Like, boom, right now you're astral projecting to Andromeda just by the fact that I mentioned Andromeda. Your
I can't believe you
awareness
just
is
said
now.
Andromeda though, because that's like that's apparently where I'm from. Like that's my like starseed that's apparently that's so weird.
There are no coincidences. There we go. And you are especially astral projecting to Andromeda because it is
Yeah.
so center in your awareness.
Yeah, that just blew my mind. But yes, I agree. Like and that's so weird because I had one of my first astral projection like experiences that I really remember very vividly in my dreams was I was in some kind of a war torn planet or area. I don't know if it maybe have been, for some reason I'm thinking Mars. It may have been somewhere else, but it was very much like red, dusty, like war
Yeah.
torn. Like it just looked very Mars like. And I remember being like helping all these people trying to get like out. And then I remember being like astral projected from there to like the stars, and I was in my light body, and my soul mom was there, and her light body, and my son, or like another one of my soul children was there in their light body as a baby. And it was the weirdest part was that my actual like earth mom was in the background like watching us, and I didn't understand it fully. But the other part that's crazy is that like when my mom was pregnant with me, like at 9 months pregnant, someone called and asked, is Andrea there yet? And like that's my parents pronounce it Andrea, but my friends say Andrea because it's been like a whole thing. And my guides are always, well, my ancestors are always like, it's Andrea. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like so annoying. But anyway, so yeah, so she called and asked, like, is she there yet? And that's where they got my name. They, always told me that I was like Mary because I was raised Catholic, so that's what they think, and
Classic.
whatever. I know it was my soul mom, but and so in that dream though, when I connected like with like our hands, like our bodies connected, we were holding hands or hugging or whatever. I couldn't put it into words, the feeling of like pure euphoria and just like everything was okay. Like I was in like it felt like heaven. Like I couldn't explain it other than that. Like I was like such a pure happiness and like genuine like feeling of like love, and like just it was something I'll never ever forget. And that was
Mm.
like one of like the first really like intense experiences I had in the last like few years, like 2 or 3 years. And it like changed my perspective on a lot of things because like I didn't realize I had a soul mom outside of here, and like that she's an alien and like all all this like stuff that my friend that's like one of my main mentors, like he explained to me when I told him about it. I was like, it was my soul mom, wasn't it? And he was like, you already know. I'm like, okay, well, like but yeah, there's so much that I feel happens in the dream realm.
The
It's
Divine Mother expresses herself in a multitude of ways.
absolutely for sure. So let me see. I asked you about that. Oh, what made you want to create the speed running mathematics, like with your own kind of theories and logic and all of that? What kind of sparked that?
It's just for fun, but I'd like to get the collective consciousness aware that our current theory of math is just that, a theory. And uh, it not always is the case that these facts that you have been taught are universally true.
Mm-hmm.
1 plus 1 doesn't have to equal 2. It depends on what system you're working in. For example, on a clock, um, 6 plus 7 equals 1, right? Because there is no 13th hour on a 12-hour
Mm-hmm.
clock. It's 1.
Oh
And
wow.
so it just depends on your settings and what things you assume. And all of math is a result of 9 assumptions, our
Assumptions, yeah.
current theory, the 9 axioms.
Yes.
But these axioms are controversial, and so I thought, I'll make a series about that use different axioms to show that they're pretty arbitrary, and you can still do cool stuff with whatever.
Right. I think that's such a I love that. Like it's like a fresh perspective on mathematics for sure, because I think it's important for people to see that like it is more than just, you know, what you're taught in school. And there's a lot of like divinity within like the sacred geometry and like of mathematics, and how they you know, intertwine with philosophy and all of creation, really, because like frequency and vibration comes down to mathematics too. So I just find it very intriguing. So I have like two more questions.
Sure.
Oh, you know what? Just one. I already asked that one. Okay, so the last question I'm asking everybody is, what is your like, what is spiritual evolution for you? What does that mean to you?
For me, spiritual evolution is a good question. Literally, I mean, what is a question when it comes down to it? A question is a query. It's a statement that creates vacancy for something new. As soon as you ask a question, you thereby create the vacancy. And this process is known in Judaism as tzimtzum, that in order to create anything, even a universe or a God, you must first create the vacancy for something to arise. So the act of asking a question is creating that vacancy. And thus, by the law of attraction, when you create a vacancy, and by the law of entropy, everything and anything will fill that inevitably. And so a question is creation. And I think the spiritual path is not so different. Spiritual evolution is learning that the very act of asking a question is creation. And thus, if you want to create more, ask more questions. If you want to be satisfied, then if you don't ask the question, there is no answer. And I think one of my favorite quotes from Vedanta is that an unenlightened person has all the questions and none of the answers, but an enlightened person has neither.
That actually makes a lot of sense, because we don't have to ask the questions once we find that, like, it's, you know, it could be either any, and everything's always changing. So
Of course.
that's a good point. Well, I'm so grateful that we got to do this.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope that you guys have some newfound knowledge and wisdom from the conversation that we had. And I hope that you guys also let me know any questions that this may have brought up for you. Feel free to comment, or, you know, send me an email or a message letting me know what you think. And if you guys are interested in more stuff like this, you can always let me know. Have an awesome day.